Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. Perhaps good morning. Today I thought we'd have a little bit of fun reviewing some of the, I don't know what to call it. It seems like lunacy. It seems like utter craziness, but it also seems kind of fun. We'll call this one Space XYZPDQ. And that'll be the term that we use from this point forward to describe all the ridiculous agencies that deal with false claims of scientific space exploration and accomplishment. Now, before we really dive in deep, I will say that, I went to SpaceX's website today, and wow, what a bunch of CG in Hollywood that frickin' website is. You know, it's Elon Musk's predictions of what his company is going to be able to do in the extremely near future are so utterly outrageous and ridiculous. Unless like the elite of the world have decided to uncover all hidden technology and give it to that guy to then get it done through SpaceX. If that has happened, then it all makes sense. But have you ever thought, how do I put this? If they were going to end the world, which again, I just read an article yesterday, Japan, I guess, is going to pass on 5G because of the harm it's going to do to the human body. Everywhere else is rolling it out as fast as possible. Again, very reliable sources on my end say it is the extermination event. But say you're Elon Musk and you're aware of these things. It's not his fault, but he gets little whispers here and there, and they're like, hey, this 5G thing, we're going to exterminate, we're going to set it all up, barely do anything with it, then we're going to spike it one night, and 80% of the world's going to die. And then we've got this big, PR campaign, excuse campaign, the remaining citizens who are going to be in FEMA camps anyway. And so, you know what, dude? And he's like, well, when's that going to happen? No, it's like 2020-ish, right? Okay. So I can say anything about what's going to happen after that point because it's not going to exist. Yeah, dude, totally have fun. All right, dude, because if that's the case, I'm going to build me a Buck Rogers 1935 chrome rocket that looks like a big joke. It literally looks like that, Trip to the Moon episode back from 1902, which I consistently referred to incorrectly in my last episode as the 1908 episode. I watched at my smoke lounge about a month ago the press conference he gave outside of his warehouse in the middle of California with the giant chrome ship in the background, and just watched all these nerds worship him, to go up to him and just live in fiction. It was almost like going to a cosplay LARPy role-playing thing, except unlike the kids who admit they're role-playing, these sort of, brown-nosing disciples of Elon Musk, who might actually be the worst presenter in real life that has ever been given camera time. That guy stutters and I'm sure he's a nice guy. But man, if I was the board of directors, I'd be like, okay, you have to step down from trying to present anything, or you need to go get your game together. Because if this was a free throw, somehow you're throwing the ball, attempting to throw the ball at the basket, but it's going behind you and hitting an elderly woman in the face. But I have to say, every single time I've ever seen Elon Musk talk, he seems like he's, aside from not being able to complete a sentence without renegotiating it 5 times before he ends, seems like a really sweet guy. The stuff that the company espouses is phenomenal. The Falcon, the Falcon 9, the Dragon, the Starship. The Tesla, company that he created for the car. The cars definitely super cool. The SUV probably being the coolest thing. I'm personally really tired of seeing the car because in Orange County they've had them from day one, and they just don't update enough for me personally. But whatever. It's progress. His ideas for shingles on houses that are solar panels, brilliant. Creating a really cool battery company, brilliant. The word on the street is that the battery design that he used to start the company and raise the money and build the machines is obsolete already before he even sold a single battery. But a friend of mine said that they're already changing it to a really like the 100-year battery? I think that's what they're saying. And it doesn't mean it lasts for 100 years. It just means it won't die for 100 years. So it seems like Elon Musk, as an individual, is involved with a lot of cool things. I think that, again, he's definitely part of the cabal because he's part of the big money. Again, he's also come out and reaffirmed that he saw some AI that he's terrified of. And it's like, okay, dude, you're not willing to say what you saw. So shut the fuck up. I mean, seriously. 5G. How about that? How about the fact that they turn it on and all the birds die in a tree? They tell the guys that install this stuff you have to be 10 feet away from the 5G antenna, otherwise you could be immediately electrocuted, EMP'd in your brain. Not really electrocuted, but it'll fry your brain, kill you. Oh, great! Sounds so safe, doesn't it? By the way, the sky today is fully chemtrailed. I ate lunch today and just sat there and watched them just dive over the restaurant. And of course, a few minutes later, about 15 minutes later, whatever they've drawn in the sky looks like a cloud to the uneducated. So is SpaceX doing anything legit? I'd say yeah. I mean, Falcon 9s, they launch out of our sight. Now, whether or not the boosters ever really truly land backwards and all that crap, totally not convinced. Again, no pedestrians been invited to see that event occur. And the first year they were trying to pawn that crap off on us. Every special effect guy in Los Angeles was like, oh my God, that's fake. You could see the cranes dropping those boosters down, where they cut the top of the booster off in the shot, so the crane's up there holding it, and it bounces up and down in a really, illogical way. But there's two halves to the equation of, faking space exploration or faking satellite launches or whatever, and then actually telling the public that you're doing it and it's for real. And let's just think about, okay, let's just draw a correlation between chemtrails and SpaceX faking stuff. Putting a rover in space, completely goddamn fake. I mean, unbelievably fake. The car would have exploded, twisted, turned. It would never have survived outer space if it's anything like they say. Maybe if space is something completely different, that upper part of the firmament dome, maybe it can totally survive up there, no problem. But in terms of the vacuum of space, 0 Kelvin, no way. No way a dashboard's going down to 270 degrees below zero, and it's just going to sit there, no problem. But for everyone who believes that QAnon is real, and that the military is supporting Donald Trump, that's the assertion. Trust the plan. These chemtrails wouldn't be over my head, because this is military airspace up there. If there was a cabal and previous administrations looked the other way, it makes sense. They could be sprayed, and Obama would be telling somebody in a Bush and Clinton and everybody, don't touch those planes. They load up in special NASA hangars on Air Force bases, and then they launch and they do something you don't need to know about. Take your orders, shut up. But at the highest level, someone has to have some type of story to aerosol the public and get everyone sick, because that's what happens. I don't give a shit what you think those things are. They make people sick. So someone has to have a story. Someone has to have a story that people actually believe. It's a shield for global warming. Okay, well, global warming is a bunch of bullshit. Complete bullshit. 99.9% of all that stuff up there is water. The rest of it's a mix of everything. There's as much CO2 in the atmosphere as there is oxygen on the surface of the sun. Okay? In fact, it may even be that there's more oxygen on the surface of the sun than there is CO2 in the atmosphere. So someone's told a story. And it's a good one. You can only threaten so much before Miss Kastbacher is going to save Superman in the pool and say, you're welcome to try to, grab both nuclear missiles. But my mother lives on the East Coast, and I'm not going to save you until you promise me you're saving my mother first, sort of thing, right? For those of you who saw the Christopher Reeve Superman back in the day. But now SpaceX, the theories that we have discussed on this show is that NASA obviously has a big problem. I don't think they worry about Jack Parsons' laboratory, now known as Jet Propulsion's laboratory. Big story there, by the way. You need to look up Jack Parsons. You need to look up all of his buddies at the time of the formation of the company in a little house in Pasadena before it turned into this fortress protected by armed guard. The other Area 51 is probably right. Patterson Air Force Base and JPL in Pasadena. But I think that they believe that all of the shenanigans and CG that's been passed off as photographs and edited photographs and composite CG photographs that JPL does to sell us the idea that rovers that were only supposed to last 11 months on the surface of Mars are nearly going on 20 years. And that the solar panels that they use to get power from just need to flap their wings and then all is good. When if you go look at the solar panel farms here in America and watch how they have to labor to clean them, otherwise they don't work, you would realize that even if you could shake the panels, you're not going to remove dust off these things enough to keep them running for 17 years or something, right? But if you think about it, when we've been really critical and you post something on Facebook or you make a video on YouTube, we're always saying NASA, 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 NASA. Well, JPL, I think, is damn near 2/3 of NASA in terms of implementation of a hoax, in that they want to make sure people believe it. Because NASA has to build a hangar and have, clean rooms that have the satellites in them and stuff, right, all wrapped up beautifully. And my buddy's Kyle from the other show, he's been through those tours. And you can go get tours from JPL as well. But JPL doesn't have the same requirement. It's just all an enigma. Supercomputers doing things. Again, I met the two guys from the 80s that worked on Tron 1982. And they said they worked 13 years for JPL creating photorealistic terrain generation software. So add another 20 years to that. And that's how many years they've been working, 40 years, to create software to fake alien terrains on planets. Any terrain you can conceive, the software can do it and do it photoreal, down to every grain of sand on the beach, every grain of sand in the desert. But what's Elon Musk been saying recently, right? Let's move around here. The press conference he gave was about his new project, Starship. Now, I'm going to say, because what I've been building up to is the following. The story behind faking space travel may simply be, let's just say there's two halves to it. For those of you who believe the Earth is flat, it's a massive deception to keep us from our Creator, supposedly, as if these human beings, through a little bit of deception, could keep you away from your Creator. That's an insult to your Creator. If we're in some matrixy alien, contact lens, then I would say that they are either working for those individuals or they are those individuals trying to keep the illusion internally so that the fish doesn't know it's in a tank, because then it would try to escape. Now that's the flat Earth side of things. But the normal heliocentric expanding Earth ball theory in an ethereal universe, the game would be to perhaps launder a ton of money, billions and billions of dollars. Like, for instance, the most expensive painting on Earth was a Michelangelo painting that sold for like $450 million. Okay, $500 million for a painting. And the rumor on the street is that is not really a painting that anybody desires that much. It's the painting is passed around to people that are supposed to get payoffs. And so let's say that you did something for the deep state. The painting arrives in a package. You take it to some auction house. They auction it off for $450 million. That gets deposited into your bank account. And then the painting trades hands. And it just gets moved around to whoever needs the paycheck. It's a way to launder money. Or it's a way to pay someone off without creating a bad trail. Well, I sold that painting. Now, that's a little ludicrous in terms of passing the painting around, but, there's ways of legitimizing everything, right? But one of the strategies that someone might have created a story around in terms of getting everyone on board, if someone goes up to Elon Musk, all he wants to do is make a roadster car using computer batteries. That's what he's really interested in. He's been a physicist and this and that. But someone says, how'd you like to do this, kid? Put rockets in space. The guy's like, hell yeah. But I know enough to be dangerous about aerospace, but I'm not an aerospace engineer necessarily. Plus, NASA's been doing it for years. JPL's been doing it for years. Let's say he believes the hype. He's drank the Kool-Aid like we all did. And they bring him aside and go, all right, here's the thing, man. We never went to the moon. We've never been out to the planets. All that shot of Jupiter, all fake. They shot of Pluto with Pluto's face on it, all fake, right? Back in the 80s, 90s, whenever they hit the probe on Venus, they supposedly faked this terrain data. And just like 2 days ago, they came out and said, Venus is all lava now, all of a sudden, and can't support life. It never did support life. All this Neil deGrasse Tyson horse shit about how Venus and Mars were completely M1 class planets and like Earth or Gaia class planets, and supported oceans and sea life and all this other crap. I mean, just all bold-faced lies based on nothing. I mean, it's unbelievable, right? So someone might have sold him the story of like, okay, we're going to start with BS. We're going to give you a ton of cash. And, we do have rocket technology. We're going to sell you the most, or we're going to bring you the most reliable launch platforms. You think up a cool name. So he calls it Falcon 9. Well, if you look up every rocket that looks like a Falcon 9 for the previous 30 years, there's a French rocket that looked like the Falcon 9. I forgot its name. It looks even like the Heavy Falcon. It's the most reliable, third-party launch platform on planet Earth. It's like there's no R&D. Just, you can make it better if you want. It'd be harder to make a Tesla car than the Falcon or the Falcon 9 or the Heavy Falcon. It would. There's more innovation in the car. But he gives this press conference about the Starship, and it's like going from Zephyr Cochrane being a drunk to, for those of you who don't know, that's the Star Trek fictional character that broke the warp barrier for mankind such that the Vulcans landed and made first contact with us, right? So, according to Elon Musk, the amount of progress that's going to occur in the next 5 years is us essentially becoming a Gene Roddenberry star-venturing people where we're, he theorized at this interview, and again, this is not to be taken literally, but he theorized that he could do 1,000 launches in 1 year, which is like, roughly 3.5, 4 launches a day of this Starship. He, I believe, is talking about building another ship in space, which is, Von Braun's original plan in the mid-50s. It's the thing that Disney animated in the 50s. You'll have to look that up yourself. Look up Von Braun, Disney, Mission to the Moon, 1956 or 55, somewhere in there, and you will see an amazing animation that Walt Disney had created to explain Von Braun's idea that looks very similar to the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey, but about 12, 13 years before. Now, the idea is that if someone sold the story, okay, we're going to lie, but the benefit is that we're going to get a lot of kids interested in science, and then we're going to benefit. Well, most of you heard the dirty word in that statement, which is science. We teach crap science all day long. I mean, I see it in movies and TV 24/7. I hear people talking about it, and it's a hell of a thing to have someone tell you that, some evil group in the world is going to get everyone upside down. And what they think. What they think is real is fake, and what is fake they think is real. So that's a heavy claim. It's like, okay, it's a neat idea for a movie. It's a good premise for a movie. But when you start seeing it in real life, and you have to argue people out of stupid, if you do go this route, you have to argue people out of stupid theories that make no sense. It's phenomenal. And I could probably do an entire episode on this, but let me throw this at you. There are people out there that want to be smart more than they want to be right. I have one of these in my family. I probably have several of these in my family. And, what is the difference between being intelligent and smart for real and going around with the chip on your shoulder that you have, like, these people that want to be smart but don't put any effort into it? And I respect anyone who might be wrong, but they're still trying to get right. They're still researching, and they're taking theory out of book and trying to get it to work in real life and observable reality. I totally respect the fact if someone's still crawling up the red pill, the red pill hasn't completely dissolved in their mind yet. Hey, you can be, in my opinion, completely wrong, but trying, and therefore you get an A for the day. But it's the people that want to lean on this sort of, like, if somebody says, well, Neil deGrasse Tyson totally disagrees with you, right? That's a person who doesn't want to do any of their own research. They want to lean on other people that are literally getting paychecks to lie to the public. Neil deGrasse Tyson's job, whether he is aware of it or not, is to lie to everyone he opens his mouth and talks to, seeming genuine, and people believe it. That's his paycheck. That's his job. Bill Nye, the complete douchebag guy, he's an actor. He's an actor that had a civil engineering degree, has nothing to do with what he talks about, trying to tell your child that despite the genetic indication between their legs, their gender is up for grabs, man. Remember, lying to a child is the heaviest sin you could possibly do in this universe, and Neil deGrasse Tyson and Bill Nye, the douchebag guy, make it a career. Neil deGrasse Tyson could turn around and say, oh my God, I do have a PhD. I could just stop, regurgitating, vomitous information of inaccuracies and go re-research things, go study Faraday to Tesla and block everything else out, go research Einstein's complete fraudulent paperwork where he cited no sources, but, which indicates he knows absolutely everything, that he invented everything. Yeah, he could come around. Bill Nye, he'll never have a chance. That guy is just one of those scumbag dudes, man. So what's the point of lying to children to inspire children, if that is indeed something that has been thought? Because I've said it several times on the show when I'm talking about the moon missions, that I know that the fake moon missions inspired me to get into science. It did. But also, in contrast to fakery, 2001: A Space Odyssey, HAL 9000, and even just the spaceship and all that stuff, the space station, all of the theoretical technology in a fictional film that was sold to me as fiction, inspired me to get into artificial intelligence, engineering in general, to go and try to digest as much aerospace and rocketry as I could possibly get my hands on as a child. Okay. So fiction could, at one minute level, get a kid sort of in the right direction. But obviously, if we're going to teach science, the religion of science, Big Bang theories, black holes, dark matter, then we're losing. We're absolutely losing. And, it only dawned on me in the last week or so that, if for those of you who believe that religion, organized religion on Earth has been devised to control man, right? Every archetype is God is there, but whatever chain of events you believe in, your salvation is only accessible through another man. And on this planet right now, pedophiles typically are those people. And so you got a problem. So you run away from religion, organized, spiritual religion, and you try to find a solution over an atheist secular science with the capital S and flying quotes. Well, then you get indoctrinated about how the universe was created, about what's actually out there, what space is, what's a planet, what shape is the Earth, have we been in space, all these fake shots of the Earth from space. I just saw some special somewhere where they were talking about the first shot of the Earth, the blue marble shot, and they showed it on the TV, and it's the edited version. I'll put up on this right now the classic one I've shown several times, but the first blue marble shot, the Red Sea was all screwed up because it was a composite shot created by a bunch of high-altitude planes. They screwed it up. But then they fixed it and didn't tell, the public that they did. I sent that to a relative of mine who doubted, it was giving me that superior complex without any knowledge. And I mean, no knowledge in this at all. Has never in their life ever attempted to know this information. Sent them the two shots. Look, this is NASA 1972. This is NASA 2019. They've edited the shot. The Madagascar and the shape of Africa is the wrong shape. It doesn't even match the Peter projection map shape. So it's completely fraudulent. No reply back, right? Standard Democrat. Show them the proof that they're completely wrong, and they just crawl back in the sand. It's a sad thing, man. But according to Elon Musk and SpaceX, man, this is a guy who said in 2017 that he's going to personally step onto Mars in 2018. It's 2 years after. It's like Elizabeth Warren saying she's Cherokee. It's Biden saying he didn't get a guy fired in the Ukraine, even though he's on video bragging in front of a bunch of dudes. This is the cognitive dissonance that's all over the world that is unacceptable. So Elon Musk, he tells the crowd what they want to hear. They get in line. And the funny thing is, no one went up to the microphone and said, "Hey, dude, you said you were going to be on the surface of Mars personally in 2018. Whatever happened to that?" There's no accountability, because in their eyes, that's the new Jesus. And no matter how much that guy claimed to be coming back to save humanity, dude never shows back up again. And they just keep, they'll eventually get there. Okay. Trump created the Space Force. If you guys see my episode about a month and a half before he did that, where it's called Replacing NASA, that is exactly what I asserted in the episode, which is, okay, let's say you wanted to dominate low atmospheric satellites. Geocentric at its geostationary at its highest. But you didn't want to have to be attached to the previous lies about the moon missions, previous lies or follow-up lies about where you're going with this technology. It's just for the military. That's all NASA's ever been, is a military organization formed by Nazis out of World War II. Operation Paperclip, the Dulles brothers smuggled in 1,200 to 1,700 scientists. I recently had the number increased in some video I saw. But, at least half of those folks went off and did the CIA, and the other half did NASA. Von Braun, one of the guys. Okay. And what's funny about it is that we have to fight these battles online. I mean, I'm being a little romantic here, or exaggerating just a little bit. If I told you a million times, don't exaggerate. But let's just say that we had 1,200 pedophiles. We had 1,200 pedophiles, and we separate them into two groups. One half goes and forms the Catholic Church, and the other half forms the Boy Scouts. Everybody at the time who's awake is going, wait a minute, you can't stick these pedophiles in these two locations because they have access to kids. One way worse than the other. But because parents commit sin and they want to be forgiven, they'll do anything to please a priest. So here's my child, do what you want to do. So fast forward 40, 50 years from this invention of NASA, and we say, oh yeah, the pedophiles touch the kids in Boy Scouts. Is the public in shock? No, you form the whole thing out of a bunch of people that are predators. So you have a bunch of military missile people who invented the V-1 rocket plane thing, and then the V-2 rocket itself. And then, of course, when they came over and formed NASA, they needed a cover story to develop ICBMs and submarine, aquatic missiles that can come out of the side of a submarine, hit the air, pop the shell off, and go. Of course, they need a cover story. The nice thing about Space Force for me is now you're just saying that's the organization you've developed. And that's great. Like I said in that episode, you could create any type of propulsion system on Earth, even anti-gravity propulsion systems, which are not allowed to be used in the public. And there it is. It's a black box. It's that literally it could be a black module that you could install inside your rocket, and they publish specs about how you can hang on to this thing and how you should structurally hang on to it. And Space Force goes, okay, we're going to get that into space. We're going to get that to the moon, Mars, whatever. You never get to look at what that black box has inside of it. But it's anti-gravity. It's a little interface, Here's a few knobs on the front. Hire some monkey to get in there and turn those knobs when you need to. What saddens me about this whole algorithm of lying to the people and submitting, computer-generated imagery as reality is that, again, in a computer you can do whatever you want. Reality is way more brutal. So imagine, for instance, the way that we actually enter space travel. Let's say space exists, even though no one can dream of it. You take Star Trek, all 5 shows from the 60s and the 4 from 87 to 2005, and you say we're going to start space travel by trying to construct the Enterprise, a very illogical looking ship. We're going to try and create this warp drive. We're going to try and create dilithium crystals. We're going to try and create transporters. And you keep going after these things that are fictional archetypes and stories, instead of doing what you would have to do, which is start with what you know. Well, what do we really know about traveling close to the speed of light, or disassembling some object into its molecular particles, putting it through a beam, and replaying them on the other side? What do we really know? So for me, a large part of SpaceX is about bullshit. I'm just going to say it. It's just say what you want. It's all out of sight, out of mind. I think what's very interesting about Elon Musk's his claims recently is he's talking about launching thousands of citizens from the United States of America and the world into space to head off to these space stations. How do you validate it? How do you validate it? Couldn't you come up with 1,000 actors? Every SpaceX launch is orchestrated like a Hollywood moment in time. All these young millennial kids sitting in some lobby with a little, like an applause scream sign off and on, like a Jay Leno, talk show set. And they're screaming and hollering, and it's just so fake. If you feel like screaming, then scream. But if you don't, then don't. But you can see these kids being cued. They have warm-up acts that go out to the crowd and warm everyone up. You guys ready to be here? It's like launching a new Target or something, right? Where they do those, god-awful reincarnations of We Will Rock You from Queen by stomping on the linoleum and clapping their hands for some guy that's tone deaf and can't hold a beat. Now, the other factor that's kind of going on right now is there appears to be, man, I saw this thing yesterday. I still can't even believe my eyes. The Chinese submitted a photograph of one of the most ridiculous looking things I've ever seen in my life. It's this black, weird thing. I mean, it almost looks like some part out of a carnival ride or something. They claim they have a flying saucer thing. If you haven't seen this, it's hilarious. I'll try to put a picture of it in here. They can travel 400 miles an hour. Okay. No imagery of this thing taking off, flying around, landing, none of that. Just a big fucking lie about what they have, right? And I should say that nearly every single time you've had a propaganda parade by a third world country, this includes Russia as well, but Russia's a pretty decent contender, but they just faked their footage of their supersonic missile. That's been proven. When you have a parade, and North Korea did a really funny one within the last year where one of the tips of the missiles was like hanging off. These are props, people. These are props. These fake missiles, I'm sure Russia's done it. Maybe even the United States has done it. Typically it's one of the countries creates it for real, and the other countries are like, oh, yeah, we have that too, right? It's like John Lovett's talking about his wife, Morgan Fairchild, right? I was only acting. So there appears to be like this tongue-in-cheek, arms race going on right now between countries. And, okay, so what if you got into the Oval Office, you're sitting there with President Trump, and he looks at you and he's like, so you're making videos that say that this is all bullshit. And I say, yeah, I am. Well, do you know you're hurting your country? And I say, how's that? How is truth hurting the country? Well, it's not so much the truth that's hurting the country. It is that you are telling people that we don't have this and that we're faking it. And he goes, you know how many jobs we create by telling the public that we're going to create a brand new rocket here or a new missile here or a new stealth plane there? I don't know, sir. How many people's that? And he's like, 100,000 employees across the United States, totaling, $250 million a year in annual salaries. If you expose this, then you are getting 100,000 people to lose their jobs, or maybe a million, hell, I don't know. And $250 million doesn't circulate around the United States. So I need you to shut the hell up, because that's what's most important. The previous administrations, Republican and Democrat, have gutted the economy. I'm trying to bring it back. Yeah, we're going to fudge a little bit of this, but overall, this works. And by the way, our competition, Russia, China, India, Pakistan, Israel, they're totally into this fake thing as well. So they're going to create those jobs. They're going to keep their people employed. And by the way, even though a lot of this is fake, there's a margin of real development taking place behind the scenes that may actually end up being the technology that we're faking. So by greenlighting all these projects and pulling all these people in, it's better that we lie and to get there than it is for us to try and tell the truth and get there. And then I say, well, sir, Mr. Trump, President Trump, what about Elon Musk? Private industry lies about everything constantly, says he's seen artificial intelligence that'll wipe out mankind, but won't tell us even one sentence of what the hell he saw. Essentially, making it all BS. It's like the guy who has the girlfriend you can never meet, but she's as hot, right? And he says, well, did you see the interview he did in front of his starship with all these nerds walking up to the microphone? Yes, I did, sir. It was very, very heart-wrenching or gut-wrenching and heartbreaking. He says, well, why? They absolutely believe in this religion, and so they're going to go off and they're going to work and they're going to publish a bunch of blogs and newspapers and magazines, and they're going to get everyone excited about the greater conspiracy hoax, which is this other stuff we just talked about, the whatever, 100,000 million people making a ton of money. It fuels an industry that pumps the heart of our country. So then I asked the $64,000 question, for those of you who remember the 70s, and I say, well, when are we going to start telling the truth? I mean, is there ever a goal to tell the truth? And President Trump says, what is truth, man? What is it? We live in a spiritual world. We watch movies. You ever go see movies? Yes, sir, I watch movies. Well, do you like them? Yeah. Well, do you believe Star Wars actually exists out there in the universe, in a galaxy far, far away a long time ago? No. But do you enjoy it? Yeah. So, what's the difference if we fudge a little bit of the fictional, inspirational stuff, art, into reality, and everyone has a better time than believing that there's a cabal of bankers out there that have Bilderberg meetings, CFR meetings, Bohemian Grove meetings, and they're eating your children? Which part do you want people to believe in? I'd say, well, I prefer to pull the Band-Aid off, sir. And then he disagrees. Or he says, well, we'll get that Band-Aid off, but unfortunately we can't yank it off. You see how crazy Democrats are? Could you imagine them having to deal with reality anytime soon? We'd have to build, psychiatric wards as much as we build FEMA camps just to house crazy Democrats that are literally going, being in padded rooms with straitjackets trying to eat each other's face off. And then I'd probably say, you got me. You got me, man. Yeah, you're right. So let's think about where this whole story might go, because NASA has announced they're going back to the moon in 2024. And what's funny about that, there's a whole section on their website about it. I'm yet to meet a friend who knows that was announced. It was kind of a big deal in the 60s, right? JFK says, let's go to the moon and come back safely. So put a man on the moon and bring him back home safely. We do it 6 times without any problems. Perfect, / maybe Apollo 13 having an issue. Russians can't pull it off, and no one else has been able to do it, including us, right? Evidence of the hoax. We all know that that's the thing. So what's 2024 going to be? Well, we know it's going to be complete BS. But let's say again, and I'm not a fear-mongering kind of guy, but let's just say again that someone is wink, nudging about 5G killing off the planet. Hence all the FEMA coffins, right? And they're not worried about accountability in 2024 because they've got some other agenda way before that to kill off humanity. What do you think Agenda 21 / Agenda 2030 is all about? It's about destroying rural communities around the world, forcing them to live into cities, which they call equity, or human equity to those that want this to happen. The EU's entire formation and goal is to bankrupt Europe, get them to consolidate because they're so bankrupt, and obviously infect us. They're going to have a bit of a problem for a while. But their goal is to depopulate the planet by 98% at least. Go see the Georgia Guidestones. And so maybe this whole thing is a big last play. So there's 2 anti-Q things that I want you to think about. One, I've got metric tons of barium oxide and aluminum oxide, nano-sized, made in some military facility, floating in the air above my head, having come out of the back of a plane. This should be a blue sky day, coast to coast, horizon to horizon. Okay? So that's still up there. Second, our president is championing 5G. The euthanizing technology that will kill off the entire United States of America, right? It'll be very interesting because there will be no 4G or 3G in at any level after they deploy. Now that may take 5 or 10 years to pull that off, but as this starts to have ill effects on human beings, we'll have to literally take matters into our own hands and climb up. Well, you can't even get close to them, right? You have to get your shotgun out and just shoot the shit out of the receivers and hope that you can stop it. We'll literally have 5G green zones where we've destroyed all the receivers, and because it's such a tight, centimeter long frequency, you'll be safe in a particular area, but you won't have any cell phone reception. Someone from our European listening community did come into the comment section and say that they're already being pitched 5G. I don't know if that's true, but that would be in the island of Great Britain. What they did for Q was somebody came into the Q anonymous comments and posted this story about how they are going to release cures to cancer, which just happens to coincide with the deployment of 5G. So imagine that. They know 5G is going to shred all your cells, and supposedly you're going to be able to take a pill or a shot of some sort, and all your cells are going to get repaired on a daily basis. So we're going to tear apart our DNA with these high frequency transmitters, and then supposedly you can just put a band-aid on it. It's all going to be better. Yeah, right. So there's two anti-proofs that this is real, or even if it is real, that this is a good idea to trust the plan. I'll trust the plan the second these planes get shot out of the sky over the Pacific Ocean, and I can just sit right here recording a show, and here comes a plane dumping a trail, and I want to see two F-18 Hornets rendezvous with that thing and just shoot missile after missile and just watch it explode over the ocean. Be awesome, right? Whoever would have thought that the next, Reich of the Nazis would have been geoengineers? I mean, seriously, if you know a geoengineer, you're looking at the witch doctors of the future. So I want to touch on Flat Earth as well because, this thing comes out in 2014, 15, heavy. And I mean strong. And I didn't know this, but I was told recently that it actually came out of Great Britain. That's where the movement started, which is very interesting because I think globally it's fairly well perceived that the education in Great Britain is, far more superior than the one in America, even though you're taught to, worship monarchies and that whole thing, and you don't have any Second Amendment to protect your rights. But it blew up, right? We were all there, and some of you guys are still pursuing it, which I love. I mean, you have to know, I really love the fact you guys are still pushing on it. So it went away, though, for about a year and a half, last 2 years or so. It's really sort of calmed down. It's not that people reverse their belief systems or anything. It's just that, we've talked about all the issues. What else can you do? I will say the one thing that makes me gag, and some of you post videos like this, so just know that my response is going to be like this, is some dude standing on some corner showing off some fairly decent concepts to get people to question, which that's the part I like, but then they crawl into the Bible to prove their point. And again, it's like, it would be, for me, quoting the Bible to prove the Bible is like me reading from a screenplay to prove my screenplay is a true story. What is righteousness? You look up the definition, it says righteousness. Okay. All right, well, I guess that's a real word then, since you use the word to define itself. So, but recently, I guess what I want to say is that I've seen a resurgence in this. I haven't seen new evidence, and I haven't seen anyone... actually, sorry, I'll take that back. One of the interesting videos that keeps going around recently is someone has pulled out a 1958 Britannica encyclopedia, which For those of you who may not have access to that or never heard of that before, in the United States of America, for many, many years before the internet, Britannica was considered the OG encyclopedia for any citizen who wanted them. They're usually leather bound. They used to cost, $5,000 for the A to Z books, whereas the World Encyclopedia was probably $500, and was quite excellent, let me tell you. But some guy, this has happened in, I thought it was one video, but I've now seen it in, God, so many videos I couldn't count. But they open this book up, and they say that when they went to Antarctica, they found a featureless dome. That where they were standing when they found the dome, they said that it went up 13,000 feet, I believe, was what it said in the article. And so that's not the total height of the dome, but that's the curve that they were on. A featureless dome. I thought that was interesting. It says dome right in the freaking definition of, I can't remember where the hell they were looking. I think that's interesting. Part of me wants that organization to hurry up. Hurry up and do one of two things. Hurry up and prove it's a dome. Hurry up and prove it's not a dome, but after you get past the ice barrier, there's another ocean out there and there's other continents out there. Prove that one. Or someone billionaire with a G5, private jet flies over Antarctica in a continuous shot and proves it's a continent down there. Okay, one or the other. Get this thing resolved so that we can move on with life. And again, if it is some sort of container, wow. Do we get in trouble the second we find out it's a container? It seems like we would. It seems like if this was all a simulation, but we had compassionate owners, we are in some physical container of some sort, made to look round, but it isn't. It even confuses me in the expanding Earth theory, that if we did become conscious of the container, that they would have to do an extermination event to reset history to keep the biological experiment that is our world going. There is a famous Twilight Zone where a dude with a bunch of other folks goes to, I believe, Mars. The vehicle they travel in crashes. All are dead but one. But it's the guy that plays Cornelius in the Planet of the Apes series in the movie series. But someone's tapping on the door on the other side, and he's tapping, and of course he's freaked out because obviously there's intelligent life on the other side of the door, and he doesn't know if it's a monster or someone interesting. Well, they open the door, and it's these Norwegian folks and this gorgeous blonde and good-looking dudes. It's like Ken dolls and Barbies. And he just instantly falls in love with the girl. But they take him to an apartment that looks like his house or whatever. And all is good until he realizes that he's in a cage. He opens the blinds to the front of his little pad, and there's bars, and he sees the girl out there and all the people, and they're looking at him because he's a captive in this cage, right? So immediately he wants out. It's just what happens. They talk about the floods that have reset humanity. Well, I don't know. What if some of this stuff has occurred and it's all to make sure that we reset our brains back down to just be observed? That's all that's going on. It's not even spiritual. It's just you're in a cage and we're looking at you or watching how you do your thing. You can have your own nuclear wars. You can genocide each other. You can rape your own kids. We just want to see what you do. Maybe that's one of those things like Star Trek where the Enterprise flies around the galaxy observing undiscovered cultures, and what do they always say? Well, we observe you so that we can learn more about ourselves. Especially primitive man, we want to know how we may have done it ourselves because we don't have that recorded on video. So I would say that the level of lies have never been more elaborate and consistent. And so part of me thinks, what's the game here? What's the game? Why not tell the truth? This is one of those horrible situations where, again, You hear it all the time. Don't tell lies because you have to remember what your lies were. And then your truth, if you want to espouse any truth or come up with an additional lie, it's standing on the shoulders of your previous deception. And so you could easily contradict yourself. That's what NASA did like crazy, right? NASA lied about the Van Allen belts not existing, not being threatening. And then when they found out in 98, it was killing the astronauts in the space shuttle. Big problem. Project Orion gets greenlit a couple of years ago. Well, geez, like almost 4 or 5 years ago now. One mission, it was canceled. And then all of a sudden, out of thin air now, it wasn't canceled. And it has solved all of the Van Allen belt problems. Yet the toxicity of the Van Allen belt's radiation is still considered classified. Classifying the radiation footprint of the Van Allen belts is about as ridiculous as classifying the speed of wind, the temperature of the ocean at any one particular location and depth. It's ridiculous. These are natural things that exist, and we need to know how they perform so that individuals can start fixing the problem. We have astronauts that are still alive that said they went to the moon when they didn't. And so now they're stuck in a quandary. Their pensions are attached to the lie. You tell the truth, buddy. Not only are you going to die, but your pension's going to get liquidated, and so your family's going to be left with no money. And, they could just threaten all kinds of stuff. And you have to understand that if you're, say, 25 today and you're hearing that idea that you've told a lie and now you can tell the truth and, undo everything, the guys from the era of the 60s and 70s have completely different brains than you do. What they fear is completely different things than you fear. So what would motivate you won't motivate them at all. And we have to always remember, the easiest method of brainwashing is repetition. How many of you have had a lie be repeated, like maybe even global warming / climate change now that it's getting cooler, right? You've done your science, you know it's bullshit, doesn't make any sense, but there's some microsecond of your life where you hear it again for the 10,000th time in your life. And for a microsecond, you're like, well, geez, could I be wrong? Could it be that the head meteorologist at MIT is wrong? Could the head patent-holding climatologist at NASA be wrong? Because they've all said it's fake. And then you go, no, they're not wrong. But for a split second, you contemplated it because of the repetition. You're an astronaut. You did not go to the moon. But for 50 years, you've been lying to the American people and the entire world that you did. You're in a state of almost Stockholm syndrome because you know that you have been threatened. And because you're of an old soul 60s mindset, I should say, you do fear that this is really going to occur with you, that you have no protection, that there's no method of getting 50 cameras on you from Facebook live feeds and YouTube live feeds and other live feeds that aren't controlled by the deep state and saying the truth, going up in front of a podium on live television at the White House, and instead of reading an encrypted message like Neil Armstrong did before he died, just simply saying what he knows is true. They sell them, patriotic BS, in my opinion, that if you say this, you say the truth, you're going to make America look horrible, so don't do it, keep going with the lie. I think that works if you think that the majority of the planet believes in the lie. I'm not convinced. I mean, wouldn't it be an amazing God fact? That's what I call God facts. You would just could empirically know the truth about something, and you say, what's the percentage of people that believe we went to the moon? And there's a percentage that hovers in front of your face, written in standard old integer number right in front of your face. And you look, and it's 65%. Do not believe we went to the moon. 35% believe we did. Well, based on that metric, you can start telling the truth, because the majority of the world is going to stabilize the other 35%. And, people will go to their graves still believing that the admission from an astronaut is due to dementia and not truth. But what's the story of Faust? I've mentioned this a couple times over 400 plus episodes. What is the story of Faust? He's a mathematician that signs a deal with the devil, thinking that he is going to trick the devil into giving him a good deal when the devil is far more intelligent than man in the story, and you always end up tanking it in the end. There's 3 or 4 great Twilight Zones all about this. Well, you never win joining the dark side. Does crime pay? Oh, yeah. Oh, totally. The biggest lie in the judicial system of the world is that crime doesn't pay. Give me a break. Crime totally pays, because we have to keep these heroes propped up. Again, if Prince Andrew, for instance, did what we think he did on Epstein's Islands and other penthouses and locations, well, he's sleeping with minors. You know, if you sleep with a 17-year-old, it's not quite as bad as sleeping with a 12-year-old. But who knows? Once you enter the camp of these crazies, who knows, right? We have a former president of the United States who went there 26 plus times to Epstein Island, leaving behind the Secret Service 5 or 6 times. We can only assume what happened. Not something we would agree with. All right. You know, and it's weird because we, not to digress, but just to go off on the lies that we accept. You know, we have a communist country like China that gets preferred trading status with the United States of America and the rest of the world because they're willing to exploit their people to build products. Well, if this was happening in our backyard, we would unceasingly act against that until it was resolved. This is not allowed. But it's okay if it's over there and we just simply chalk it up to it's a foreign planet with their own culture. But boy, they make some iPhones and Samsung phones really, really well, right? I guess Samsung is actually Korean, but you have places around the world that, prostitution is not only rampant and really sort of a deep double percentage method of creating their gross national product or gross domestic product, but these people that, and this is just weird, I've seen these videos where even Vice has done it a couple times, the channel, where these guys are going down the street and there's all these boys dressed like girls. That's about 60% of it. But if you start looking at the ages of these kids, it becomes apparent that some of these kids are really below the international average of what we consider to be consensual sex. And not only are they underage, but by the time you see their face on Vice, how many thousands of tricks have they turned before the camera ever gets on their face? Well, there's what would be considered typically an international crime, especially if an American who knows they're not supposed to be doing that flies over there to get that type of sex of underage kids. And as a sort of an Occam's razor contrast, how many times have you heard American big game hunters and the British royalty go to Africa and hunt rhinos, they hunt lions and elephants and other, amazing creatures that some of them are on the endangered species list. They pose with them dead, and then we have this total outrage about killing animals in Africa. And I think we should, right? So the idea and the premise with that is that we can't leave our country where this would not be allowed, go to another country where it is allowed, do it, take a picture, and bring it back and celebrate it. So what would be the difference between, Bill Clinton going to Epstein's Island, sleeping with a 13-year-old, and in the middle of sex, big thumbs up as a Secret Service guy, or Jeffrey himself snaps a shot of a naked president with a minor in the middle of sex, and he puts it on Instagram, Twitter. Well, there you go. You've left our country, where this would be completely illegal and get you killed in prison, to going to a foreign country or a foreign island doing it, and it's suddenly okay. Now, no one has technically said that doing it at Epstein Island was okay. They know that that's a bad thing. But go to Thailand. Go to all these other countries where kids are forced to sell themselves to eat. Where's the invasion? Where's the outrage, right? I've said it a long time ago. in my global warming episode, if climate change was real, then this is something, and especially the AOC crazy shit, right? We only got 10 years to live. And she's not going to be able to have babies now because of climate change. Wow. I hope she believes that. But if that was true, that the world's going to end because of climate change, then it doesn't matter if you're a Rothschild, a Windsor, a Habsburg, king and queen of anything, a Koch brother, a Bush, an Obama, a Trump, it doesn't matter. You would have less than 10 years to live. Now, maybe if you're really, really old, you don't care because in 10 years you'll be dead anyway. But there's plenty of people that are alive that are super powerful and super rich that would care. What would happen? Well, you make one phone call to President Xi and you say, you have exactly 48 hours to shut down these factories. We are going to be emailing them to you. They've been identified as super carbon footprint facilities. We do not care what corporation is using the benefits of these factories. You must shut them down. We're going to bring you schematics for safe energy. So if you can continue using your dam energy, your hydroelectric, you can use anything that's safe, but you can't use these factories. Are we in agreement? Now, he's got two choices at that point. Screw you or okay. But this isn't happening, right? Because this isn't real. But what if he said, screw you? All right. What would be the next part of the conversation? Okay. Then we're going to go to plan B. Your country at these locations, and we're going to try to keep it civilian safe. You need to know in the next 48 hours, we're going to roll over your country with stealth planes. We're going to hit you from space with ion cannons, directed energy weapons, and we're going to liquefy all these locations. So you have a choice. Turn them off and keep the hardware, and you can cannibalize it and recycle it, or we're going to wipe you off the face of the map in these particular areas. We're going to try to keep all your people safe, but you can't have these factories. That's what would happen if climate change was real. The United States of America would have to do the same thing. India would have to do the same thing. Every country that is barfing out carbon, if the world was going to end, if the ice caps are going to melt, again, the North Pole melts every few years, the whole thing melts down to nothing and then refreezes back up. That's a natural cycle for that area up there. And, if you think about, and there's plenty of tests, what blew me away was I talked to a friend of mine that disagreed with me on this, and I didn't have the heart to continue the conversation. But let's say you go to the local fast food place and you say, give me a drink, a large Coke, large iced tea. They put a bunch of ice in there, they pour the tea in. And you don't drink a single drop of it, but you sit there and look at it. Now, all the ice is inside the cup. Maybe a tiny millimeter fraction of the ice breaks the surface of your cup. You're not going to have the cup overflow all of a sudden because the ice melted inside. It's already displacing the water. As a matter of fact, it probably would go down infinitesimally because the ice also has air in it. Well, have you ever seen a glacier, an iceberg? You can't see through them like an ice cube. Why? Because they have metric tons or cubic meters of air in them. That's why they're blue. That's why they're white, because it has air in it. Well, the majority of the ice is actually already in the ocean, so that displacement's already occurred. So it melts everywhere. Between the frozen water and the ice bubbles, you're probably going to even out pretty much. Maybe you get a few inches tops if you melted it all in one day. But the idea that ice melting creates more volume inside of a body of water is just bunk to any alarming degree. Plus, the South Pole is never going to be hot. It's never going to be 32 degrees. Well, it's not going to be 33 degrees Fahrenheit, which is or maybe like 0.01 Celsius, right? Over freezing. It's never ever going to be warm enough to do that. So it's always going to be generating new ice. Again, the average temperature of the South Pole is between 60 below zero and about 20 below zero. Your average temperature of the North Pole is around 0 Fahrenheit and 20 or 30 below, depending on what kind of storm might be going on up there. Now, are these trails contributing to moving the jet stream and putting warmer air where it shouldn't be? Absolutely. Absolutely. There's I forget the guy's last name, but the guy named Dane, who really started tracking chemtrails. I believe he's got a PhD, but he helped invent solar panels back in the day. He's done a lot of science on where the jet streams were, where chemtrails are sprayed, and they sit there and watch the jet stream maneuver around these artificially stimulated high pressure zones. Again, if you spray a bunch of chemtrails and get rid of storm fronts, which are low pressure zones, then the sun and the atmosphere could push down through that lack of resistance and create a high pressure. Once you have high pressure, depending on how high the altitude goes for the high pressure zone, it'll move the jet stream. Jet stream is extremely powerful, so luckily I think it's a battle you won't win. So let me know what you think about these space programs. I'd be interested in your solutions, because we can complain all day long. We can compare notes on what's been faked and what is real, how you believe, the Earth is a particular shape. Well, here's another question for flat earthers. How are you guys going to get this thing proven? How far away do you think we are from getting it proven? What techniques do you think are most conclusive? Right? Do you have to go up to the dome and go knock, knock, knock? I think that would be awesome. I'd be a little afraid to try and fly over the South Pole if I thought there was a dome in the way, right? Because you would smack your ship right into it and die. For those of you who think it's round, but NASA's still lying, what's the plan? Do you dissolve NASA? Do you dissolve Jet Propulsion Laboratories? Does it all just go into the Space Force? Do astronauts need to tell the truth? Does someone else need to leak the truth? It's a big problem. It's a big quagmire we've got to figure out. So maybe out of our process of working together, what if the pedestrians of the world came up with the solution, and then we made a bunch of videos about that solution, and then the government hears it and goes, oh my God, that would actually work. It would protect the baby boomers with sore butts and get all the millennials to go, finally, I don't have to live in a boatload of lies. I mean, the amount of lies going on right now is just tremendous, man. I mean, it's like living in Freaky Friday from that old book, or Wacky Wednesday, whichever book you read, where everything is weird. Someone has 3 legs, there's a shoe on the side of the wall. I mean, everything's funky. And we're sitting here like it's not funky. We're watching America literally be attacked by socialist globalists who do not serve this country, taking a shit on everything that is the Constitution. We even have Hillary Clinton calling the Constitution basically a dirty old rag from the 1700s that needs to be ripped up, thrown away, and rebuilt. Wow. Dream up an enemy that's worse than someone saying something like that, and that person is actually thinking about running for president again. Wow. Someone who takes a shit on the very foundation of the country that has been one of the greatest experiments on the planet Earth since maybe previous utopian eras, which we don't know when and where those occurred, based on a bunch of great thinking from Europe for the Magna Carta that almost got that situated over there. If you think about the Constitution being somehow this impenetrable document, I want you to realize that Magna Carta, which is the foundation for the Constitution, was hatched at around 1000 AD. Well, let's think about it. How much bad news in Europe did we have from 1000 AD to 1900 or 2019, however you want to slice it? Horrible shit happened over there after Magna Carta was created because it was immediately destroyed after it was created. It can happen again. It can totally happen again. So again, I think most of you know that to build a really sturdy building or house, you have to have a great foundation. If the foundation of your country is built on lies, then your demise is assured. It's just a matter of time. We're all getting red-pilled. That's fantastic. We need to continue red-pilling people until we get the overwhelming majority of the world on one page, at least the civilized world that makes differences, fights these gigantic electronic wars. It has to occur. So I'm interested in your thoughts. Dump them into the comments of YouTube. And if you haven't got deepthoughtsradio.com, that's where you can find all the other videos that will set this video up beautifully. So there's 2 options for video, 2 for audio, 2 for social media, at least 2 for donating, and all new remastered season 1. So while my neighbor makes a ton of noise, take care of yourself and someone else, and I'll see you in the next Deep Thoughts. Over now.